Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today we are taking a look at the Department of Energy Colt Model 633, or actually we're looking at H&R, aka PSA's, reproduction thereof. So PSA, Palmetto State Armory, a few years ago acquired the trademarks to the Harrington and Richardson Rifle Company. Now H&R was a gun manufacturer from way back. They made M1s during the Korean War, and then they actually got a contract to make M16s during the Vietnam War in the late 1960s. And H&R M16s have always had a cool collector niche with guys who are into that field. And by acquiring the trademarks to H&R, PSA put themselves in a position where they could make H&R branded AR lowers with all the original iconography that look just like original historical pieces. They also purchased Nodak Spud. If you're not familiar with Nodak Spud, they were a company that made really excellent AK receivers for a long time. Back during the golden days of AK home building, Nodak Spud was the go-to company making AK receivers. And they made a variety of different styles of receivers for different specific guns, whether you were making Tantals or Romanian guns, Yugoslav guns. They had specific models to meet all of the different varieties of AKs, and they expanded into also making retro reproduction ARs. So uppers and lowers, all sorts of cool, really niche specific early cloner ARs. Well, PSA purchased the company. The guy who runs it still runs the company now for PSA, and they make a line of retro AR pattern guns that PSA sells under the H&R, Harrington Richardson brand name. Okay, this is getting a little long-winded. We're almost done here. They have M16A1s, M16A2s, and they came out with a 9mm version because Colt in 1985 released their Model 635, which was a 9mm submachine gun version of the AR-15, and it was developed to basically to appeal to the whole, easy training, same sort of controls. It's just in 9mm instead of 5.56. It was a way for Colt to offer a product alongside, that fit into their existing product line that was something that would compete with specifically the MP5. So the Colt 9mm submachine gun used modified Uzi magazines. It was closed bolt, simple blowback, it was a pretty straightforward gun, and PSA under H&R has recreated it. Now, one of the rarest and kind of coolest of the Colt 9mm iterations was what internally at Colt they called the briefcase gun, which was a super short variety, this guy with a 7-inch barrel on it. And there was only really one significant sale, one significant purchaser of these guns, and that was the US Department of Energy. Hence, it becomes known as the DOE, or the Department of Energy model gun. Under Colt's nomenclature, this was the 633 or the 633 HB. We'll get to that in a minute. And you might be wondering, of course, what on earth does the Department of Energy need with submachine guns? And the answer is Department of Energy is tasked with security for a lot of nuclear materials, transportation of nuclear weapons, as well as nuclear site security. So yeah, the Department of Energy actually had some really switched on high-speed firearms security teams. They don't use these things anymore. They didn't buy all that many of them, but they're the only significant agency ever to purchase this thing. And I think the reason is these have they have telescoping stocks, but you can't fold the stock on an AR like this because of the buffer and the recoil spring and the whole basic AR-15 design. Yes, there are folding ARs today, but this is 1985. They didn't exist 40 years ago back then. Yes, that was 40 years ago. And so for the super short version, I think the MP5K was just a much better option for people because you could fold the stock. Anyway, so DOE bought them. That's what they've become known as. There have always been a small number of original actual Colt DOE uppers that were available on the market, but they're very expensive. At SHOT Show last year in 2014, we talked to H&R and they had a prototype of this that they were talking about bringing out at some point, and very excitingly, now, right before SHOT Show 2025, they have actually finished it, released it, and it's available through their website. So let's take a closer look at this. All right, let's start over here. First off, when these were first developed, they used standard AR or M16 lowers that had either screwed or riveted in inserts to adapt them to use these magazines. The magazine that Colt opted to use was, like I said, a modified Uzi magazine. The only modification is the addition of a magazine catch notch up here to fit the M16 or AR pattern magazine catch. The Uzi, of course, uses a heel-mounted release, and it's got a notch down here. These are magazines that are new manufactured by H&R, by PSA. They have two different patterns of them, which fit the originals. You have 20 rounders and 32 rounders. I believe the originals were actually, the Uzi mags were 25, but PSA offers a 20 and a 32. Taking a look at the markings here, we have the original H&R Lion logo. Model is SMG, which is correct. Specifically model 635. So this is the 635 is the standard Colt 9mm with a longer barrel, is 10.5 inch barrel. Technically speaking, these very short guys are model 633 or 633HB because they did offer them with a hydraulic buffer instead of the regular just plain spring buffer. Those were never particularly successful. Like, not a whole lot of people bought them. They have long-term durability issues, the early Colt hydraulic buffers, and frankly, you don't really need them. You can get the same effect if you really want it by increasing the buffer weight or tuning your ammunition. So, caliber 9mm. We have H&R markings here. The original H&R was not in West Columbia, South Carolina. That's PSA's location. And they did actually mark this safe, semi, and auto, but as you can see, it has no third pin. It is semi-auto only. The selector switch does not move to full auto. It's just a nice element of the historical clone style where they actually put all three markings on it. Typical features for H&R's 9mm guns, we have an A1 style carry handle, which was appropriate for these guns as originally created. We have the original style basic charging handle. These guns originally had the standard Colt collapsing stock. H&R/PSA have created this one, which is, legally speaking, a stabilizing brace, and they have done a really good job of making it look very similar to the original stock. So this is what the guns come with if you purchase them as pistols. Pretty cool. Like, props to PSA, to H&R for coming up with a really good, as undistracting of a stabilizing brace design as possible. However, before we take this out to the range, I'm going to be registering this as an SBR, so we're going to chuck this and put a proper stock on, which frankly looks virtually identical in a super win for legal minutia. Anyway, we also have a uniquely 9mm upper here. They shortened the ejection port because you don't need a full-length ejection port with a short little 9mm case. This deflector, very large, solid deflector, is exactly the style that Colt put on there. That's to both deflect empty cases and also shield shooters from gas. This is a simple blowback gun, so it is going to be more gassy than delayed blowback systems. And PSA now does this with a solid, like a purpose-built 9mm receiver. So this can't be switched back to 5.56 magazines. You just have your 9mm magazine well there. All right, now the most interesting elements here, of course, are the front end. 7-inch barrel. Colt had an experimental design at first. They wanted a hand stop out here to prevent you from sliding your hand in front of the muzzle. So that's what this sheet metal piece is. That's a hand stop. These handguards, I believe, were actually developed or modified from M231 handguards. That was Colt's port firing weapon, which was an open bolt, very high rate of fire version of the M16 that had a handguard, a full length barrel, and a handguard out here that actually had coarse threading on it that would thread into the firing ports of a Bradley armored fighting vehicle. They took those, cut them down, and that's how you get the Model 633, the Department of Energy handguard. These handguards are new manufacturer reproductions made by PSA. We then have a folding front sight, which is perhaps a little bit weird given the fixed rear sight and carry handle, but I see rumors that this was done because DOE was going to use these on armored trains with firing ports. I haven't been able to substantiate that, and frankly, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I suspect this was much more just because this front sight sticking up is a potential snag hazard, and someone figured it'd be a good idea to have a way to drop it down. So there's nothing that locks it. You can see the detent right there. It just snaps down. The original guns just had bare muzzles. H&R has given these threaded muzzles, as, by the way, did at least one of the other companies that made reproductions of this upper in the past. There have been a couple other companies that did repros of this. Some of them offered bare muzzle, some of them threaded it. So if you want to put a suppressor or a muzzle brake on this, I think it totally ruins the look of the gun if you do it, but if you want to, they come threaded from H&R. That is 5/8 24, by the way. Let's go ahead and pop this open and have a look inside. Pop the rear pin, open it up. There is our bolt and carrier. This is actually just one piece. You can see the nice hefty weight pinned in the back. That's to give the bolt enough weight to function effectively as a simple blowback gun. The gas key is, well, it's a sort of a fake gas key. It's there to interact with the charging handle, but of course there's no gas system on this. There's no gas tube inside the handguard because just simple blowback. So there is a fixed ejector that's right here built into the lower. There is also a feed ramp built in there. You can see the feed ramp is actually screwed in to the bottom of the receiver, and that's just to help cartridges negotiate the rather long distance down there from the magazine all the way forward up to the chamber. This is one of the hazards of converting a full-length rifle to a very short little pistol system. You're going to have to make sure the cartridge can successfully navigate the route from the magazine all the way up to the chamber. So there you go, standard buffer assembly, standard fire control group. If you had one of these and you wanted to replace the fire control group with an aftermarket trigger, you certainly could. They're all standard parts there. H&R did make a few upgrades to this. You can see the bolt hold open is actually a little bit different, and this does lock open on empty magazines. So there's a tab on the back of the magazine follower there that's going to interact with the bolt stop right there. So yeah, there you go. There's your Colt 633 Department of Energy clone from H&R. Now, let's go ahead and swap this to a real stock and take it out to the range. All right, so first off, in order to avoid the obvious dangers of criminal enterprise, I have paid $200 so that I can put that on instead of that. So, let's see how this is actually going to shoot. Front sight is up. I got some just generic, oh, there we go, generic 124 grain Magtech 9mm ball. That's really easy to shoot, and it gives you classic M16 experience of hearing the spring go sproing right next to your face every time you fire. The recoil impulse from this is actually quite feelable, quite tangible, because it is just simple blowback. It's just that heavy bolt slamming back into the receiver. If you wanted to soften this a bit, wouldn't be a terrible idea to put a heavier buffer in it, but it's, I mean, this isn't supposed to be like the ultra smooth competition gun. This is Colt's too small to be truly practical submachine gun from the 80s. So in rapid fire, it really does bounce around on you a bit, but it's fun. Nifty. Successfully locks open. This was, by the way, these were my first shots ever through the gun, and it ran flawlessly, which I'm very happy to see, because you'd think that's normal, especially for guns that get sent to people with large YouTube channels. It is not nearly as normal as you might suspect. So I pulled the stock all the way open. Early Colt stocks were 2-position. This one comes with a, I believe, 6-position buffer tube, so you can put the stock or stabilizing brace if you're going to use those. You can put it wherever you like. I'll shorten it up a little bit this time. That's easy to shoot. That's fun. I am not getting any noticeable gas in the face from it. Now, that might be different if I put a suppressor on there, and we do have a little bit of a breeze out today, but between the factors that are here and perhaps the gas shield that Colt did put on there, that's not an issue at all. You know, it's one thing to have PCCs for competition and to make them as smooth shooting and minimum muzzle rise and minimum felt recoil as possible. I totally get that. We're going to be looking at a gun like that really soon, one of the mean arms bearing delay systems. This is at the polar opposite end of the spectrum, where it is all about the looks and the history behind when this was developed and when this was the new production available thing that you could get if you didn't want to deal with HK and you wanted a good proper Colt gun instead of some MP5K nonsense from Europe. Well, this was your super short briefcase gun option, and it still is a lot of fun to shoot today. Second magazine, completely flawless. We'll go ahead, I've got 20 rounds left in this. We'll go ahead and empty it just to make sure it runs as well. But so far, you know what? Price point is right. These are, I looked at them. I don't know 100% exactly what the price point is going to be because this is being filmed right as they're releasing these. And PSA did send me this one to film specifically, so I did not pay for it. But it looks like price on this is going to be $12.50, which is not bad for a complete gun with this kind of cool look and cool provenance. So well done, PSA, well done, H&R, the crew that used to be at Nodak Spud that is now running H&R for PSA. As far as I can tell, they're doing a fantastic job, and I hope they keep it up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.